Before we start, I'd like to mention that there is a GoFundMe page, link in the description. Thank you. Morning of May 24, 2022, in Uvalde, Texas. Shortly after 11 a.m., on the morning of the 24th, 18 years old Salvador Ramos shot his 66 years old grandmother, Celia Sally Martinez Gonzalez, in the face at their residence, 552 Diaz Street. A bullet pierced her jaw and upper cheek, shutting out her teeth.
Big old pile of blood. There's a towel thrown. There's some fragments along the door. Some tissue or brain. I'm not too sure. It's about it. Everything looked like it happened right there in the hallway.
Ramos then flees using his grandmother's pickup truck, which was a 2008 Ford F-150. Gonzalez was able to get off the floor and walk to a neighbor's home to call for help. 82 years old Gilbert Gallegos. Gallegos said Ramos appeared panicked as he entered a truck parked in front of the house and then sped off. The teen was followed by his grandmother, who was covered in blood. She says, "Berto, this is what he did." He recalled, "He shot me." This is how one of the deadliest school shootings in America happened.
However, we do know this. There's compelling evidence that the law enforcement response to the attack at Robb Elementary was an abject failure and antithetical to everything we've learned over the last 2 decades since the Columbine massacre.
At age 17, the attacker had only completed the 9th grade. On October 28, 2021, Uvalde High School involuntarily withdrew him. Ramos moves in with his 66 years old grandmother, Celia, after a fight over Wi-Fi between the suspect and his mother, Adriana Reyes, months prior to the shooting.
He was estranged from his father, and effectively, when he moved in with his grandparents in February, was estranged from his mother.
The shooter communicated via gaming forum and on some social media platforms his thoughts about committing a shooting. In some cases, his messages were embraced. In others, he was banned. But on no platform did anyone ever make a report to the police.
At least 8 months prior to the attack, he was moving towards on what they would call a pathway to violence.
He asked his sister to buy him a gun. She flatly refused. The shooter had made $4,000 at Wendy's, which was then used to purchase the rifle. As soon as he turned 18 on May 16, 2022, just 1 week before the shooting on May 24, 2022, he was able to purchase guns and ammunition, buying 1,740 rounds of 5.56mm 75 grain both tail hollow point. He then ordered a Daniel Defense DDM-4 V7, an AR-15 style rifle, which he hid from his family and the one he will use for the incident. For shipment on May 17, 2022, he bought a Smith & Wesson AMP-15 from Oasis Outback Barbecue and Grill. It is a restaurant that also sells guns. His Wendy's co-worker recounts that he would brag about his plans to buy you guns while at work, describing him as demented and having mental problems. She claims he suddenly quit 2 weeks ago after he got enough money to buy 2 guns, ammunition, and a tactical style vest.
Mine just last week and he broke down. He didn't want to live anymore. He said he was crying to me outside. He didn't want to live anymore. But he proved it.
11 a.m., Ramos allegedly had one-on-one direct contact on Facebook with Ceci, a young girl he met in Yubo. A website described itself as a social media live streaming platform. The first message said he was going to shoot his grandmother. It is not believed that Cesar saw the messages until the shooting occurred. Tuesday was awards day for the end-of-year celebration, and the students of the Uvalde Robb Elementary School were invited to wear a nice outfit and fun shoes as part of the Footloose and Fancy team. The week previously was National Police Officer Week.
It was our typical morning, and we ate breakfast together. It was going to be a good day because it was going to be our day of awards, and some kids in my class said that having gotten an award, all year, we're going to get an award that day.
This is 2 days away from the summer break. In regards to the 4th grade classroom, there were 2 rooms that had 2 classes that had co-teachers. In room 112, the co-teachers were Eva Morales and Irma Garcia. In room 111, Artulfo Reyes is a teacher, with the connecting doors connecting room 112 and 111.
Are they separated?
They're separated, but there's a connecting door.
So he went into inside.
And it's often left unlocked, the connecting door, and there's no bolts so that you can bolt it from either side to prevent entry.
The students just came from their recess and entered their room. As told by Chloe Torres, a student of classroom 112. Their teacher, Irma Garcia, had turned on a movie, Lilo and Stitch. Xavier Lopez made the honor roll on the day. He was eager to come home and share the news with his 3 brothers, but he decided to stay at school to watch a movie and eat popcorn with his classmates, with his girlfriend, Annabel Rodriguez. In room 111, 11 students stayed, including Uzira Garcia, as he was fond of Mr. Reyes, the teacher of classroom 111. Angeli Gomez had already attended the school that morning for her children's graduation ceremony. After the graduation ceremony concluded, Gomez went to work. Ramos drove from Dia Street down to Grove Street. Ramos didn't have a driver's license and had a hard time making turns. 11:28, the truck crashed near Hillcrest Memorial Funeral Home. The car went through a barricade and then ended up getting stuck in a concrete drainage ditch. A Robb Elementary School teacher exits the school's west-facing entrance door to transport food from her parked car to the classroom. The teacher witnessed the car wreck and runs inside to retrieve her phone, using a rock to keep the door prop open.
But was the door closed and did the lock just not work? I thought when it closed, it was supposed to automatically lock.
Well, you can set it to two sections, and it's similar to the actual door on the interior as well. You can turn it all the way one direction. It's unlocked. You can turn it another direction, and it's in the lock.
Okay,
position.
so the latch was working functionally.
Yes, sir.
Well, it was just turned in a position when you close it, it doesn't lock.
Exactly. Someone did not lock that door.
Ramos then wore a backpack containing ammunition and tactical gear, including a vest that could hold ammunition, but there was no armor or fabric that would protect him from gunfire. Hillcrest Memorial Funeral Home is across the street from the school and the place he crashed his truck, according to the 2 funeral home workers, Cody Breseno and Gilbert Remones. He crashed and they ran towards him, concerned about the crash. He emerged from the passenger side of the vehicle wielding a Daniel Defense AR-15 style rifle that has a Hellfire trigger device meant to allow a semi-automatic rifle to be fired more like an automatic rifle. So they ran away, and Ramos aimed his AR-15 and fired 3 shots at them. But missing completely. Ramos then makes his way towards the school. 11:30 a.m., police received the first 911 call detailing the crash and shots fired. The Robb Elementary School teacher earlier calls 911 to report the car crash. While on the phone with the police, she returns to the prop-open door and sees Ramos approaching the school with a gun. Robb Elementary coach Yvette Silva was outdoors at the time with a group of 3rd graders, and she spotted a backpack being tossed over the fence of the school, followed by a person dressed in black climbing over it. She then saw the person raise a gun and begin to shoot. She ran from the field towards her classroom. She used her school radio to report Coach Silva to office. Somebody jumped over the fence and he's shooting. She ran toward a group of 3rd graders on the school playground to tell them to lock down. Principal Gutierrez just finished an award ceremony and was in her office when she heard Coach Silva's report over the radio. She attempted to initiate a lockdown on the Raptor application, but she had difficulty making the alert because of bad Wi-Fi signal. Sasha Martinez, the teacher in room 110, including her class, had left their classroom ahead of schedule for recess. They were on their way to the playground when they heard a coach yelling, pointing at the roof, and telling them to run. Martinez started to hear gunshots, and her students started running, some towards the cafeteria, others joining her in the direction of the classroom in the west building. She then decided to take them to another open classroom in another building instead. The teacher then removes the rack she had used to prop open the door and shuts the door. But the door does not lock, as the Texas DPS confirmed. 11:31 a.m. Patrol vehicles arrive at the scene of the funeral home. At around the same time, another Uvalde police officer, Sergeant Daniel Coronado, also arrived on the scene. Sergeant Coronado first stopped his patrol vehicle south end of the South Grove Street. He saw two Uvalde police officers at the intersection who had arrived before him. Sergeant Coronado exited his vehicle and asked where the shooting was occurring. At first, the other officers said they did not know that officers saw children dressed in bright clothes in the playground or running away. Then, at a distance exceeding 100 yards, he saw a person dressed in black, also running away. He raised his rifle and asked Sergeant Coronado for permission to shoot, but was never responded to. Sergeant Coronado testified he heard the request, and he hesitated. He knew there were children present. It turned out to be the elementary school coach, Abraham Gonzalez, that was at the park to get his lunch. Sergeant Coronado saw people at the funeral home and also indicating that the attacker was running towards the school. He returned to his car and drove east down Geraldine Street to attempt to flank and engage the attacker. Emmer Garcia received an email.
Also called the alarm, and the school goes into a lockdown. Active shooter. And they get the kids, and I won't go through the protocols.
Told the students that they're going in a quick lockdown. A student turned off the TV, and Irma Garcia walked out to find the keys and lock the door from the outside, as the classroom doors can only be locked from the outside of the classroom.
And here's the door. You cannot lock this door from the inside of the classroom.
In room 105, 4th grade teacher Jenica Rodriguez received a raptor alert of a lockdown at 11:32. Her students knew what to do and hide. She stepped outside and checked her classroom door to ensure it was locked. As she did so, she looked across the hall and locked eyes with another 4th grade teacher, Miss Garcia. But Mr. Reyes of classroom 111 is nowhere in sight. As Mr. Reyes later says in a testimony, he never received a raptor alert for a lockdown. As such, he did not take any special precautions towards the door. There was substantial evidence that the door did not secure properly. Arnulfo Reyes knew this and on several occasions reported the condition of the door to the school. Sergeant Coronado parked his car on the northeast corner of the campus and saw Uvalde CISD Police Chief Arredondo arrive. Peter Arredondo arrived with his radios, but as he exited his vehicle, he was fumbling with them and they bothered him. So he dropped them by the school fence knowing that Sergeant Coronado, the sergeant on patrol, was there and fully uniformed with his radio. 11:32, Nicole Ogburn, the 4th grade teacher in room 102, heard a sound like metal on brick from the outside. She looked out her window and saw a man in dark clothes with a gun walking up the sidewalk. She told her students to get down. She heard gunshots coming from the outside into the room. She hid under one of the curtains in the room. The suspect then shot 24 times as he walked from the outside of the building. The suspect hit the classroom 102, 103, and 104. There were no deaths, but I can't confirm if there may have been injuries during this barrage of fire. 11:33, the suspect entered the school by simply pulling the unlocked door. The door has windows on the either side, so it doesn't really matter. The suspect can shot through it and reach for the bar on the door. On the same note, the south door is also unlocked. As seen in the video, he fired through the door, got close, and fired again, and tried to open the door to classroom 112 but failed. He then goes to the door of the room 111 and fired through its door. Mr. Reyes, the teacher in classroom 111, heard the first burst of gunshots aimed at the neighboring classroom.
the kids started asking out loud, Mr. Reyes, what is going on? And I said, I don't know what's going on, but let's go ahead and get under the table, act like they were going to sleep. Is about the time when I turned around and saw him standing there. I turned around, and when I turned around, I saw him, but I just saw like the shadow, and that's when I saw the two, like the fire, and then I ended up on the ground as well.
Mr. Reyes turned around and was shot twice, hitting him in the arm and back, and he fell down and released another burst of fire in one of the rooms. We cannot be certain on which of the doors the attackers first entered, but based on the evidence available, it is most likely that the attacker found the door to room 111 unlocked or unsecured and entered through that door. And then the suspect entered the classroom, continued shooting inside the classroom.
It all happened too fast. Training, no training, all kinds of training. Nothing gets you ready for this.
Told by Chloe Torres, a student in classroom 112, as they heard the gunshots from the other room. Her teacher, Irma Garcia, blocked the connecting door, but even with this effort, the suspect managed to push the door open and force himself inside. Irma Garcia, the teacher, started guarding the children with her body, pleading with the suspect. One of the children, Emily Jo Garza, tried to call 911 using her friend's phone. When she did that, the suspect...
He crouched a little bit and he said it's time to die.
The suspect then shot Emily. The suspect then walked around the classroom and started shooting once again.
Shot my teacher and told my teacher goodnight and shot her in the head. And then he shot some of my classmates and the whiteboard.
Chloe's classmate was shot and injured beside her. Chloe said to her to be quiet, but the girl was too loud, and the suspect shot her again. Before I discuss the police response, I would like to first show how it should have been done based on active shooter protocol and school shooting drills.
2 deputies head in alone. No time to wait for backup.
This is what you call a contact team. 3 or 4 officers all working together, moving right to the threat as fast as they can.
Who identified themselves as the tactical supervisor? If no tactical supervisors there, how chaotic would it be? I mean, how chaotic is it with the tactical supervisor? Now imagine without. So there needs to be, try to get that command and control.
Uvalde Police Sergeant Eduardo Canales, commander of the SWAT team, had been at Robb Elementary just an hour before his son's end of year school ceremony. While working at his office, other officers ran down the hallway and said there had been a vehicle incident with shots fired. They followed Lieutenant Mariano Pargas, the acting chief of the Uvalde Police. Sergeant Canales entered an open gate where he met Lieutenant Javier Martinez. 11:35, 3 minutes after the subject entered West building.
Oh shit, shots fired! 701. Get inside! PD unit. Go, go, go! Shot in the head, laying on Diaz Street. The one female shot in the head.
This ends the initial burst of round consisting of more than 100 bullets being fired, before the suspect turned his attention to the police. During the 2.5 minutes of gunfire, it is likely that the bullets passed through the walls and struck a student and Miss Avila, the teacher in room 109.
Like my teacher got hurt like on right here, like on what I don't know which side, but she got hit on the side, and then my friend got like shot through the nose. And they both had to get surgery.
Uvalde CISD Police Chief Arredondo arrived after the attacker had already fired over 100 shots in Rob Elementary School West Building. Two separate group of officers converged in the building at the same time from different directions. On the south side of the building, Chief Arredondo and Officer Adrian Gonzalez and Uvalde Police Officer Page and Sergeant Coronado, while on the north side, Lieutenant Matrinas and Sergeant Coronales of the Uvalde Police entered, followed by Officer Luis Landry. None of the initial responders recalled hearing screams as they arrived in the building, and have no idea that the teachers and students just then had been shot inside the classroom. There are now 11 officers, including Uvalde's school chief, in the scene, with 2 rifles. 11:37, officers approached the door, but the suspect fired 11 rounds fired through the walls, which grazed and injured 2 officers.
Fuck. Am I bleeding? Am I bleeding? Am I bleeding? Bleeding, guys. That's my wife's classroom.
Can't break in here. Can somebody break?
He's in this classroom right here on the right. Anybody in there? Take cover, guys.
After the attacker fired at the responders, Chief Arredondo noticed the light in room 110, the room immediately south of 111, which was used by Miss Martinez, who had taken her class out of the building early for recess. Chief Arredondo wondered if there could be a threat in the room 110. He entered the room and he saw holes in the walls, but the room was vacant. He later says in his testimony he thought, "There's no babies in here, it's a ward's day." He testified that he prayed that if room 110 was empty, the children might be gone from the rooms occupied by attacker as well. Although the encounter had begun as an active shooter scenario, Chief Arredondo testified that he immediately began to think of the attacker as being cornered and the situation as being one of a barricaded subject, where his priority was to protect people in the other classrooms from being victimized by the attacker. He would later say in his testimony, "We have this guy cornered. We have a group of officers on the north side and a group of officers on the south side. And we have the children now that we know in these other rooms." My thought was, wear a barrier, get these kids out, not the hallway because the bullets from the windows in the doors. This is consistent with that of the other responders. They uniformly testified that they were unaware and heard no screams or cries from within the rooms, and they did not know whether anyone was trapped inside, needing rescue or medical attention in classroom 111 and 112.
It's going to be Miss Miletta's classroom. See if the class is in there right now or if they're somewhere else. Again, it's Miletta's classroom.
So now, I would like to discuss first what was happening in the command structure, as it is one of the largest contributor in the inaction of the officers in the scene. Arredondo had assumed that some of the officers or officials had taken control of the larger response based on the protocol on school shooting he co-written, where the chief will be the commanding officer. And since the Uvalde police chief is on vacation, the acting police chief, Lieutenant Pargas, should have been on command, and so Arredondo took on the role of a frontline responder. He says he didn't call Bortak. Later in the incident, when some new responders arrived, that the officers should clear out of the south side of the hallway because the United States Border Patrol Tactical Unit, or BORTAC, responders were operating on the opposite end. Sergeant Coronado responded, "Chief is in there. Chief is in charge right now," suggesting both that Chief Arredondo was in control and in communication with the other side of the building. He was not. The acting chief of police, Lieutenant Mariano Vargas, was on the north end of the building. Lieutenant Vargas, who was one of the earliest responders, testified that he was never in communication with Chief Arredondo and that he was unaware of any communication with law enforcement officers on the south side of the building. He said that he thought Arredondo has jurisdiction over the incident and that he must have been coordinating law enforcement response, as he considers him as the most senior first responder, should have been the on-scene commander, and that the Uvalde police was there to assist. This is one of the largest problems during this incident. Lack of communication between the north and south hallway officers that was divided by the line of fire of the suspect. 11:38 a.m., a Uvalde police officer erroneously reported,
"Okay, guys, he's on inside this building. We have him contained. He's contained. We got multiple officers inside the building at this time. We believe he's barricaded in one of the offices. Messed up. Is still shooting."
The suspect goes back and forth between classroom 112 and 111.
Thought he was gonna come back to the room, so I grabbed the blood and put it all over me. And
what did you do then when you put the blood on yourself?
just stay quiet. And then I got my teacher's phone and called 911.
And what did you tell 911?
I told her that we need help and to send the police in our classroom.
11:39 a.m. One of the students in classroom 112 called for help.
One of the students from the next door classroom was saying, "Officer, we're in here. We're in here." And then, but they had already left. And then he got up from behind my desk, and he walked over there and he shot over there again.
Chief Arredondo then used his phone to call the Uvalde police. The Department of Public Safety provided the following transcript. Scene: Hey, it's Arredondo. Can you hear me? No, I have to tell you where we're at it. It's an emergency right now. I'm inside the building. The dispatcher can be heard talking in the background asking what room number. Is the teacher with him? Is she in the same room as him? Can you hear me, ma'am? Can you hear me? Ma'am, I'm right here. Ma'am, is the teacher with him in his classroom? She's in another classroom. She's in room 102. Another person possibly shot across from her. Okay, we have him in the room. He's got an AR-15. He shot a lot. He's in the room. He hasn't come out yet. We've surrounded, but I don't have a radio. The dispatcher confirms the SWAT location. Yes, and they need to be outside of this building prepared, because we don't have enough firepower right now. It's all pistols and he has an AR-15. If you dispatcher asks if you can stay on this phone with me as long as you can. I am, but I'm gonna drop it when I come out of that door, alright? The dispatcher radioed.
Valley LPD is just advised 401 stated he's got the shooter in room 111 or 112. He's going to be armed with a rifle. Repeat, armed with a rifle. He's requesting for SWAT by the funeral home south of the building.
So I need you to bring a radio for me and give me a radio for me. I need to get one rifle. Hold on, I'm trying to set him up. Post-Columbine doctrine is to stop the suspect as fast as possible. As such, even if you are the first officer on the scene and you are armed or outnumbered, or both, you will still have to neutralize the suspect as fast as possible. Order to contain the subject, treating this as a barricade suspect needing a SWAT team, not an active shooter.
Now, the doctrine for active shooters is clear. Run to the sound of gunfire. When you get to gunfire, you don't stop.
But the training also says, if the attacker is in an area where they're isolated, cannot escape, and can do no more harm, officers don't have to go in. Instead, they should wait until other first responders arrive, treating the situation as a barricaded subject. But this didn't change even after they knew that there were students inside the classroom. 11:41, Border Patrol agents joined the officers, bringing the total officers on scene to 15. 11:42 a.m., one DPS trooper and two Valde police officers enter from the east hallway. 11:43, a note was posted on the Facebook feed. Please know at this time, Rob Elementary is under lockdown status due to the gunshots in the area. The students and staff are safe in the building. Then came a second message. There is an active shooter at Rob Elementary's. Law enforcement is on site. 11:51, 7 Border Patrol officers entered the west door of the school. At least 32 officers are now in the scene. 11:52, the first ballistic shield entered the west door 90 minutes in. UPD officers showing up were ordered by the on-scene commander to help crowd control, and other officers that showed up afterwards are also diverted to crowd control activities.
Tip for units that are just showing up, units, if you can't help with crowd control on the outer perimeter, we have coverage all the way around the campus right now.
Within 10 minutes of the shooting, Gomez, mother of the two of the students, received a phone call from her panic-stricken mother informing her that there had been a shooting at the school. So she got in her car and sped at about 100 miles per hour back to the primary school. At around this time, mother of the two children inside of the school parked her car near the school. A U.S. Marshal approached her and said that she had to move her car.
Right away as I parked, U.S. Marshal started coming toward my car saying that I wasn't allowed to be parked there, and he said, well, we're going to have to arrest you because you're being very uncooperative. I said, well, you're going to have to arrest me because I'm going in there, and I'm telling you right now, I don't see none of y'all in there. Y'all are standing with snipers and y'all are far away. If y'all don't go in there, I'm going in there. He immediately put me in cuffs.
She then had to convince an Uvalde police officer to convince the U.S. Marshal to uncuff her. She was successful.
As soon as they uncuffed me, I jumped that first gate fence, and once I jumped it, I went to my son's class, and I knocked on the door, and I remember the teacher saying, I'm like, hey, they're already bulge cutting the fence to get me. She's like, you think we have time to get out? I said, y'all have time. I'm gonna run for my other son. They're already coming in for me, so might as well take your way out.
$11.56.
Ruben.
She said she shot Johnny.
Uvalde School Police Officer Ruben Ruiz is overheard telling officers she says she is shot. Ruiz was speaking of Eva Mirales, his wife. She is one of the two teachers killed in the shooting. And what happened to him is he tried to move forward into the hallway. He was detained, and they took his guns away from him and escorted him off the scene. Chief Arredondo appeared to have decided that quickly breaching the classroom without shields and other protection would have led to officers possibly being killed. He focused instead on getting other children out of the school while waiting for additional protection equipment. Students from opposing classrooms are escorted out the window by the police.
Y'all run.
Somebody jump out the window.
Oh, the kids. They're getting the kids out.
They're getting the kids out, yes.
Chloe Torres called 911. She was the only kid in the class that wasn't injured or dead. 12:03 p.m. Using a teacher's cell phone, another student called 911 from inside the classroom that lasted 1 minute and 23 seconds.
Hey, Wagner. Shots fired. What's your game plan?
Have a child on the line.
Hey, what was that?
Room 12. I will need to see child is advertising. He is in the room full of victims. Full of victims at this moment.
Full of victims. Child called 911 saying the room is full of victims. What? The room is full of victims. Child 911. Child 911 call.
At this time, 9 children are injured. Over the next 17 minutes, elements of Border Patrol tactical team began arriving.
There's 2 shields here. There's 2 shields right there.
No, we got one in there.
Yeah, 2 right here.
Okay.
Arredondo requested a master key for the classroom. A second ballistic shield is brought in the west door according to school surveillance. 12:04, a third ballistic shield is brought in the west door. 12:06 p.m., Anne-Marie Espinosa, a spokeswoman for the Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District, posted on the district's Facebook page, all campuses are under lockdown status. Uvalde CISD parents, please know at this time, all campuses are under a lockdown status due to gunshots in the area. The students and staff are safe in the building. The buildings are secure in a lockdown status. Your cooperation is needed at this time by not visiting the campus. As soon as the lockdown status is lifted, you will be notified. Thank you for your cooperation. 12:09 p.m. Arredondo is heard saying, "Go around and get the master keys to the room," according to body camera footage. 12:10 p.m. The first 911 caller calls back and says there are multiple dead in the classroom.
Was that gas?
Yeah, gas. You don't have gas mask?
No.
12:14 p.m. Arredondo called for a sniper to get on the east roof of the school.
How do you sniper? And this is how you hold your rifle. Live on the street. You get on that east wall, east roof. East roof. He's gonna have vision of it. So on the east roof right here. So they can climb in through the east side of that. They can go up on the street right there. ASAP.
12:15, Bortak enters the scene.
Did you run me shot? Yeah. The subject, no one knows what kids or anything else like that?
You know, there's kids and teachers in there.
But they're just students.
Yeah, there's a student in here talking.
12:16 p.m., the 911 caller calls again and says 8 to 9 students are still alive. 12:17 p.m.
Let me clear this room first.
I don't know which one of those.
Careful, Chief. Here, I'll run behind you. Come on. Cover that room.
Remember, he is shot.
Cover this one. Shh. Watch out, Chief. Just clear that fatal funnel.
You ready for freebies?
Tell them to fucking wait.
Don't shoot.
No one comes in.
12:19 p.m., a call is made by someone else from room 111. The caller hangs up when another student tells her to, and a fourth bulletproof shield arrives at 12:20. Importantly, however, the fourth shield by the U.S. Marshal was the only rifle rated and was the only one that would have provided meaningful protection to officers against the attacker's AR-15 rifle. And there is no evidence that anyone told Chief Arredondo. 12:21 p.m.
Open that side. Open that. Right on top. There, hold it. Right there, hold it. Fuck. Fuck, it's not opening. Police.
One second. Make sure I get these kids to this.
I need a breaching tool.
Why are they calling me?
No breachers?
I'm a breacher.
No, we need a tool.
You got a breaching tool?
Hey, can you go get a breaching tool?
Like for a trailer house?
I know.
Cover.
Go forward a little bit.
What do you say?
Just communicate.
Can you hear me, sir?
12:21 p.m. The shooter fired 4 shots, forcing officers in the building to reposition themselves down the hallway away from the door, once again proving that this is an active shooter situation.
That side.
After the officer moved forward, another group of officers began to stage medical triage equipment in the east side of the north hallway. This indicates that the Bortak likely assumed tactical command of the incident at this time. 12:23 p.m.
Third window to the left.
The wall's too thin. If we start shooting, we're going to get more kids. We already have those.
That's what I'm saying. You're right.
I hate to say, we have to put those aside right now.
he did a lot of things to make me flinch or react in some way. And that was one of them, where he like got my, like, as I'm laying down, like either like this or like this, tapping it, but it was splashing on my face.
The blood.
Yeah,
Was he trying to see if you were still alive?
I think so.
12:24 p.m., Arredondo tried to speak to the shooter in English and Spanish.
Sir, if you can hear me, please put your firearm down, sir. We don't want anybody else hurt.
I know.
That's what we're doing. We're trying to get them out. They're going to break the window. Sir, if you can hear me, please put your gun down. We don't want anybody else hurt.
Tell him in Spanish. Tell him in Spanish.
Si me puede escuchar, la arma para el piso, por favor. No queremos nadie más que esté heridos. Responde, por favor. Can you hear me, sir? Can't hear with this fucking chopper.
He got no response.
I'd like to get to that fucking window. I think we should flashbang that window and then go in.
I know, but
I hope they're planning on that.
Vortex gonna do it.
12:25 p.m., a female victim appears to tell a police dispatcher.
Are you in there?
Where?
Kid outside.
They shot a kid?
12:26 p.m., an unknown officer told Arredondo that a teacher was shot in the classroom. He responded. 12:27 p.m.
People are going to ask why we're taking so long to try and preserve the rest of the life. What team? Got a team ready to go? Got a team ready to go?
We're good.
Have at it.
He is the team leader. 12:28 p.m.
That's what I'm doing. It's not opening up. He's either over here. So there is a window over there, obviously. So the door's going to probably be locked. It probably is going to be locked. That's the nature of this place.
12:29 p.m.
Man, these master keys aren't working here, bro. Yeah, room all of 108, 110, 104, 102, all these on the west building. We have a master keys and they're not working. Even this.
12:30 p.m.
Okay, we're gonna clear out everything except for that room. We do have some people down. Where the flag door? We're just past the flag to the right. It's gonna probably be the south. There's two doors, probably the south door. But we're ready to breach, but that door's locked.
12:33 p.m.
Yeah, for sure. If we get a key, it's gonna take a second to open that goddamn door, bro. So
We need to breach it. We can't use the keys.
Yeah. I say they need to breach through those windows and shoot his head off from the windows.
The escort surveillance camera shows the arrival of a hooligan breaching tool at 12:35. And yet again, there is no evidence that the arrival of the breaching tool was ever communicated to Chief Arredondo, which he was waiting for to breach the door or anyone else on the south side of the building. According to his statement, 12:06 p.m., a child calls 911 for 21 seconds. Around this time, a girl calls 911 and is told to stay on the line and stay very quiet. The girl says he shut the door. 12:38 p.m., the chief tried to communicate with the suspect in English and Spanish yet again.
Mr. Ramos, can you hear us, Mr. Ramos? Please respond. Salvador! Can you hear us, sir? Please don't hurt anyone. These are innocent children. Please put your firearm down. We don't want anybody else hurt. Salvador! Señor Ramos, ¿me escuche? Por favor, sir. Did you say something? Mr. Ramos, please put your gun down. Don't hurt anyone.
This negotiation by Arredondo with the suspect caused a spread of misinformation to the officers outside, and the officers were told to stay out of the building because Chief Arredondo was actively negotiating with the attacker based on the committee report. 12:41 p.m.
We do understand there's some injuries in there, and that's what we did. We cleared off the rest of the building so we wouldn't have any more besides what's in there. Obviously, we're having a problem getting in the fucking room because it's locked. He's got an AR-15. He's shooting everywhere. Crazy. So he stopped. Mr. Ramos.
12:43 p.m.
And then see if you can see it through the window. I was looking for a sniper. There's no snipers around here to look through that. And if we can get a sniper on that rooftop, they're gonna try to breach in a minute, but they gotta get that fucking door open, bro. If we can't get that door open, we need more keys or something.
But nobody ever did so. At 12:45 p.m., somebody commented that a ranger had a set of keys that was being tested. The girl that calls 911 dispatcher urges the dispatcher to please send the police now. 12:46 p.m.
If y'all are ready to do it, you do it. But someone should distract him out that other window, brother.
We need flashbangs.
If Arredondo says 12:46 p.m. At the same time, the 911 caller inside the classroom 112 says he can hear police officers next door. 12:47 p.m. The 911 caller inside the classroom 112 again asks for the police to be sent in. Around the same time, a sledgehammer is brought in from the east hallway. Commander Guerrero, the BORTAC commander, to try open a door to see if it would work. He determined it would take too long and dangerously exposed an officer to gunfire. Commander Guerrero then obtained a master key from an officer at the scene. As he made his way to the classroom door, an officer advised him to try it on another door first. He attempted to open another door along the hallway, and it did not work. He then received a second master key. Which he successfully used to open another door. All this while, nobody called Principal Gutierrez to ask about the location of a master key. She had a key, yet despite all the efforts to find the key, nobody called her. Working with the BORTAC team, Commander Guerrero had another agent use the rifle-rated ballistic shield to give him cover as he used the key to open the door to classroom 111. Then 3 seconds after 12:50 p.m., a stock of 7 officers, a tactical team led by border patrols, enters the classroom. Only 4 went directly in because the door closed and left the 3 out, and they entered afterwards. The attacker was standing in front of a closet in the corner of room 111. And he fired his rifle at the stack of officers coming through the classroom door. 5 officers shot at the suspect, killing him. 12:58 p.m. Police report that the suspected shooter was killed by the officers and the siege is over.
And then I got out with my friends because I knew it was the police when I saw the armor and the shield.
After they shot him, and the border patrol said, "Anybody get up? Let's go, you know, like, try to get the kids out." Nobody moved but me. And then somebody else said, "There's children under here." The children were dead under the table.
At this time, 91 law enforcement officers from various law enforcement agencies, including Uvalde School, the City of Uvalde, DPS, Border Patrol, and the Uvalde County Sheriff Office were at the scene. At a June 21 hearing, it was revealed that the classroom door was never locked throughout the incident in the first place. 1 hour, 24 minutes, and 51 seconds. That is how long this incident went on. There were 19 children and 2 teachers killed and many more injured. In classroom 112, 8 students and 2 teachers were killed. In classroom 111, all 11 students that stayed were killed. Mr. Reyes, the teacher of the classroom 111, is the only survivor.
I just went to my parents and said, I'm sorry. I tried my best with what I was told to do. Please don't be angry with me.
Celia Martinez Gonzalez, grandmother of the suspect, was later taken to the hospital, expected to survive, but will need a significant reconstructive surgery, and currently communicates only through writing. Irma Garcia's husband, of 24 years, Joe Garcia, died of a heart attack 2 days after the shooting. He had gone to her memorial on Thursday morning to drop off flowers, raptured by the grief of losing the love of his life. Cody Briseno, funeral parlor workers, helped bury 5 children who died that day, including a cousin, Mary Jo Garza. Mia Cerillo was later treated in the hospital for wounds caused by bullet fragments. The mother of a daughter with Down syndrome named Gabby recalled Miss Mirales as a transformational teacher in her child's life. Gabby is 23 now, with a high school diploma under her belt. Miss Mirales, she said, she never saw that potential as any lower than anyone else in that classroom. The mother, Angeli Gomez, that rescued her children inside the school, is now suing the police.
No law enforcement while I was running around the school. No law enforcement. And there was a moment where I stopped by the cafeteria hearing kids scream and just think to myself, oh, let me just say a quick little prayer. Because in case he comes out, he's gonna shoot me.
Days after the shooting, the parents of Ozia Garcia, a student of Arnulfo Reyes of classroom 111, got his possessions back. Back among his things was a portrait he had drawn of Mr. Reyes. The couple, Sabia Lopez and Annabel Rodriguez, didn't survive the incident. They were buried side by side. The response by the police of Robb Elementary School is now the subject of overlapping investigations by the Texas State Police and the U.S. Justice Department.
I live in San Antonio. It took me 50 minutes to get from San Antonio to there, to come here to Uvalde. They took 77. I love my Blurs and Blue, but it's just like any profession, you know. This profession is not made for everybody.
My daughter was a fighter. Took a little bullet to the heart and still fought. She fought hard to stay alive. These cowards couldn't go in.
A major error in law enforcement response at Robb Elementary School was the failure of any officers to assume and exercise effective incident command. It was the subject of a closed-door hearing at the state capitol in Austin on Thursday that featured the director of the Department of Public Safety, Stephen Macro.
But I want to make this clear too. This is when I say we as the law enforcement community. And when one fails, we all fail. Plain and simple.
Even after all this, the DPS still hasn't given their body camera footage, and reportedly have decided that they will only reveal their body camera footage after the investigation is over.
What is DPS hiding? Who told them to wait? We paid for 91 officers to be on the scene and do nothing but mill around like it was a Sunday afternoon. It is disrespectful to the people of Uvalde to tell them this could take years to go to trial. The shooter is dead. Unless you're going to indict a bunch of cops, get on with it.
Commander Guerrero's report stated that he unlocked the door, but as explained earlier, there's a reason to question whether the door was actually locked in the first place. Uvalde CISD Police Chief Peter Redondo officially resigns from Uvalde City Council on July 2, which he joined days prior to the shooting, and was filed by the City Council on August 24, 2022, exactly 3 months after the incident. Uvalde police officers responding to a vehicle wreck and shots fired appear to have arrived first on the scene, which will make one of them the initial incident commander. Uvalde CISD Police Chief Arredondo quickly arrived. This made him a natural person to assume command. The chief, Peter Redondo, has said he did not consider himself in charge. He explained, while you're in there, you don't title yourself. I know our policy states you're the instant commander. My approach and thought was responding as a police officer, and so I didn't title myself. But once I got in there, and we took that far, and then I realized we need some things. We've got to get in that door, we need an extraction tool, we need those keys. As far as I'm talking about the command part, the people that went in, there was a big group of them outside the door. I have no idea who they were and how they walked in or anything. I wasn't given that direction. You can always hope and pray that there's an instant command post outside. I just didn't have an access to that. I didn't know anything about that. If you have any correction or addition, please comment them below. Once again, you can support the families of the victims with the GoFundMe page, link in the description. That's about it. See you next time.